famous final photographs. Number 10. Chris Benoit, 1967 to 2007. Benoit was a Canadian professional wrestler who spent time with many wrestling organizations, including the ECW, WCW, and the WWE. He was an extremely successful and popular wrestler. During his career, he accumulated 16 championships as a singles competitor, including 2 WWE World Heavyweight titles and a WCW championship. He is the second of only 3 men to hold the belt in both WWE and WCW. On the 25th of June 2007, Benoit and his wife, Nancy, and their 7-year-old son Daniel were found dead in their home. A subsequent investigation found that Benoit had killed his family and then hung himself with an exercise cord. Toxicology reports found a devastating mix of medication and steroids in his body. On the day of the murders, Benoit was visiting the office of Dr. Phil Austin in Carrollton, Georgia, and a fan snapped a cell phone picture of him. This is the last known picture of Chris Benoit, who committed murder the same day the photo was captured. Number 9. Jesse James, 1847 to 1882. Jesse James was an American outlaw from the state of Missouri that was born in 1847. He was regionally famous when he was alive, but became a legendary figure of the Wild West after his death. He was an ex-Confederate following the American Civil War and was infamous for robbery, shootouts, and murder. In 1882, the James Gang was nearly annihilated by arrests, deaths, and defections. Jesse felt the only men he could trust were Robert and Charlie Ford. On April the 3rd, the Fords and James prepared to depart for another robbery when Robert Ford shot and killed an unarmed Jesse. Ford ultimately decided to cash in on the reward money and fame of killing the infamous outlaw. The death of Jesse James was a national news story and an important event in history. As with many famous outlaws during this era, death pictures were taken of James to confirm and record the incident. This picture gives a sad profile of the famous James, who will continue to be embedded in American folklore for generations to come. Number 8. Manfred von Richthofen, 1892 to 1918. Manfred von Richthofen was an infamous German fighter pilot given the nickname Red Baron. He was born into an aristocratic family with many famous relatives. During World War I, von Richthofen was the most successful flying ace of the Imperial German Army Air Service. He has been historically credited with 80 confirmed air combat victories. He was killed in action just after 11 a.m. on April 21, 1918. He was pursuing a Sopwith Camel piloted by a novice Canadian pilot and was shot down by a trailing fighter. This is the last photograph of him, and it was taken on the morning of his death. You can see his military boots and piloting attire. Historians note there is one other image of von Richthofen as he was getting ready to depart on his final voyage, but his face is not seen. Number 7. Geoffrey Miller, 1950 to 1970. Geoffrey Miller was transferred to Kent State University from Michigan State in 1970. He was a smart kid and had many friends. When first arriving at Kent State, Miller pledged Phi Kappa Tau fraternity and became a member. On the 4th of May 1970, he was shot and killed by an Ohio National Guardsman in the Kent State shootings. Miller was part of a large group of unarmed students who gathered on the Kent State campus to protest the U.S. war efforts, especially the recently announced invasion of Cambodia. At some point, the guardsmen became agitated and fired 67 rounds over a period of 13 seconds, killing 4 students and wounding 9 others. There was a significant national response to the incident, and many students all over the US conducted a walkout and strike. Geoffrey Miller's last photograph is truly a sad sight. John Philo was on campus the day of the shooting and took some iconic images. One of them was the Pulitzer Prize-winning picture of a young girl screaming while leaning over the dead body of Geoffrey Miller. It is one of the most famous pictures in US history and shows the realism of the event. Geoffrey Miller was a kind-hearted, passionate man who was murdered at a young age. I strongly feel the final picture of Geoffrey is a fitting tribute to his life and has helped teach a generation about an important cause. Number 6. M.V. Wilhelm Gustloff, 1945. M.V. Wilhelm Gustloff was a German passenger ship during World War II. The ship was named after Wilhelm Gustloff, who was the German leader of the Swiss Nazi Party. It originally served as a hospital ship, but once the war started, it was assigned as a floating barracks for Navy personnel. On the 30th of January 1945, 3 torpedoes fired by the Soviet submarine S-13 sank the ship, killing around 9,400 citizens and officers. The ship was struck while participating in the evacuation of civilians and personnel who were surrounded by the Red Army in East Prussia. The evacuation was part of the German Operation Hannibal. It was a gloomy night and the MV Wilhelm Gustloff sank in less than 45 minutes. Most of the passengers were forced to enter the rigid waters of the Baltic. It remains the greatest loss of life during a maritime disaster in history. Today, the shipwreck is one of the largest on the Baltic Sea floor. The final recorded picture of the MV Wilhelm Gustloff is taken from a bit of a distance as it left harbour on its final voyage. You can clearly see the massive giant floating away. Number 5. Bonnie and Clyde, 1910 to 1934. Bonnie and Clyde were a pair of well-known outlaws, robbers and criminals who travelled the central United States during the Great Depression. They captured the attention of the entire nation and news agencies rigorously followed every crime. They are thought to have robbed numerous banks and killed 9 police officers. Bonnie and Clyde were killed on May 23, 1934 on a dirt road in Bienville Parish, Louisiana, near their hideout. They were ambushed and shot by 6 police officers, riddling hundreds of bullets into the couple's automobile. A media circus ensued and numerous pictures of the bullet-ridden car and Bonnie and Clyde's bodies were published. It was a clear attempt by the police to show the population that murder and theft would not be tolerated. The final picture of the group is rather gruesome, but it gives a true sense of the reality. Bonnie and Clyde were outlaws that practiced violent force, and it is fitting they would meet the same fate. Number 4. Salvador Allende, 1908 to 1973. Salvador Allende was a Chilean political official and the president of Chile from November 4, 1970 to September 11, 1973. He was originally a physician and became the first democratically elected Marxist socialist to become leader of a state in the Americas. Allende had a close relationship with the Chilean Communist Party from the beginning of his political career. America was uneasy from the moment Allende was the leader of Chile, and he was eventually overthrown in the 1973 Chilean coup d'etat. The government was dissolved and Allende arrested on alleged breaches of the constitution. The Supreme Court ruled that his rule was a disruption to the legality of the nation in its failure to uphold judicial decisions. President Allende died during the coup and his body was filled with AK-47 ammunition. His death was officially labelled as a suicide, although certain aspects are unexplained. In his final days, Allende realised that his government was going to be overthrown and that his life was in danger. He was constantly watched by armed guards. The last picture of Salvador Allende was taken in the final days of his life. He can be seen dressed in a suit, surrounded by police, and looking very cautious. It is an interesting photo, and it gives an important glimpse into the world's political history. Number 3. Tupac Shakur, 1971 to 1996. Tupac is a rap music pioneer and top-selling recording artist. He was also a promising actor and determined social activist. Shakur has sold tens of millions of records worldwide and is still considered one of the most popular musicians in the industry. He is considered one of the top-earning deceased celebrities, bringing in millions every year. In 1994, Tupac was shot 5 times and robbed in the lobby of a recording studio in New York City. He lived but emerged extremely angry and helped spark the deadly East Coast-West Coast hip-hop rivalry of the 1990s. On September 7th, 1996, Tupac was again shot, this time 4 bullets in a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas. He was in a vehicle leaving a Mike Tyson prize fight. Tupac died several days later of respiratory failure and cardiac arrest. His famous final photograph was taken by a paparazzi 20 minutes before the deadly drive-by. It shows him and Serge Knight leaving the fight in the car Tupac was killed in. Number 2. Michael Jackson, 1958 to 2009. Michael Jackson is one of the greatest musicians of all time. His record sales and award nominations dominate all others, and he is widely considered the most successful entertainer of all time. He has 13 Grammy Awards, 13 #1 singles in his solo career, and has sold over 750 million records worldwide. Jackson was also a renowned philanthropist and supported 39 different charities, raising millions of dollars for the less fortunate. On the 25th of June 2009, paramedics responded to Jackson's house after he suddenly collapsed and stopped breathing. He entered into cardiac arrest and died at the hospital within the hour. TMZ was the first to report the news of his death and had cameramen outside Jackson's home when he was being removed by paramedics. His last image is quite revealing as he is being put into the ambulance with a respirator over his mouth. The King of Pop had died and will be greatly missed. Number 1. John Lennon, 1940 to 1980. John Lennon was born in Liverpool, England in 1940. He is one of the most astounding songwriters and performers of the 20th century. Lennon is a founding member of the innovative rock group The Beatles. He was a strong peace activist and important social figure of the 1960s and 70s. John was a bit of a rebel, but extremely dedicated to his music. In 2002, a BBC poll on the 100 Greatest Britons voted Lennon 8th. On the night of December the 8th, 1980, Mark David Chapman shot Lennon in the back 4 times in the entrance of the Dakota in New York City. He staggered his way into the building, but was pronounced dead after arriving at the hospital. Earlier that evening, Lennon had autographed a copy of Double Fantasy for Chapman, who was stalking his neighborhood. By pure coincidence, a man captured a photograph of Lennon during the encounter, and you can see the eerie face of Mark David Chapman in the background. It was the last recorded photo of Lennon before he was murdered. John Lennon truly has an immortal legacy that will continue to thrive and expand forever. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to our channel by clicking the subscribe button in the top right. Our channel has loads of other awesome videos just like this.